when he's leaving, when he's getting ready to get on that train, and his mom looks at him and says, "Don't come home."
You are listening to Saints in the South. All right, welcome to another episode of Saints in the South. Good to have you. Yep. Whoop. It's always good to get together and talk some scripture.
That's right.
Scripture power. Well, hey, so today's title is Preserved by His Marvelous Power. And this is going to get us through the second half of the war chapters, and just kind of jumping in here in chapter 53. Y'all are familiar with the term bromance, aren't you?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I thought that's what we had here.
That's exactly what we got here. That's right.
Like, what are you getting at?
What are you getting at here, buddy? No.
Chapter right here in the very chapter 53, very verse 3. I love it. Moroni and Lehi, they've got them a bromance going on, man. It says, "Now behold, this Lehi was a man who had been with Moroni in the more part of all his battles, and he was a man like unto Moroni, and they rejoiced in each other's safety. Yea, they were beloved by each other, and also beloved by all the people of Nephi." I just thought of, in just today's time, Marcus said here, we got a bromance going on here, so to speak. You've always got your best buddies, your best friends out there. And I really see that here just from that scripture, Moroni and Lehi being just great buds and really each other and so forth. So
there's no telling what these guys have seen together, all these battles they've been together. And obviously that bond there is super, super strong.
That's right.
Yeah, they get a lot of work done too, as we see.
Well, especially those who've seen battle together, who've been in battle. They it kind of reminds me of the way I know we all know people that are old veterans, been in service in the Army together or something. They always kind of get together. There's a lot of, like, I've got a friend whose dad and his buddies get together every year. They talk about their old time in the Army, and there's something really bonding about those experiences. And I was actually talking about just the other day with someone in the context of trauma, because really battle, it's easy to forget that battle is a traumatic experience, and there's trauma that's involved in this. So these people, have all been through these incredibly traumatic experiences together, and they have a shared experience.
Yeah.
So they're going to have a bond together that other people could never understand, because they like, dude, we've seen things that,
only each other can understand.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
I hadn't thought about that. That is true. You have your circle of friends. Everybody has a circle of friends, but there are those friends that you feel like they know me, because they've experienced a lot of what I've experienced, or we grew up together, whatever it is. There's always that, and it's always closer, and it's just, and so, that's what we've got here, with Lehi and Moroni. So,
I see a lot of in today's time with what we're going through, and like in verses 8 and 9, it mentions that the Nephites began to lose ground to the Lamanites because of their inner dissensions and inner arguments and things going on, and a country, it seems like in history, a country always falls. I say not always, but a lot of times it falls or it weakens because of what's going on within. Within that.
Absolutely.
Stuff. So,
absolutely.
And I unfortunately, I see a lot of that going on today. There's a lot of inner battles and everything, and it's just becoming more and more prevalent, unfortunately. So,
well, the greatest enemy we'll ever face is ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'm sure that's a quote somewhere, but it's true. I mean, because it's, you see it today. I mean, just like you're saying, Jackson, I mean, it's, our greatest threat to our Constitution is ourselves, as it's our own nation. And it's crazy to say something like that, but you go back to the Book of Mormon, to the freemen and the kingmen. I mean, that's what was happening, man. I mean, all of a sudden, Moroni had to deal with something that was like, this is going to just wipe us out if I don't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, the Lamanites was the last of, you know, he had to push that to the side, and it was his own people that he had to sort of take control of. So anyway, that's true. That's, I look at something here in verse 5. I like whenever, so Moroni has all these prisoners that he's using, basically.
That's right.
He's very smart, man. He's utilizing these prisoners to help build up the fortifications, you know, and stuff. And I love in verse 5, and I'll just read the excerpt out of the verse 5 there in chapter 53. It says, "Now Moroni was compelled to cause the Lamanites to labor because it was easy to guard them while at their labor." So it was not just something he thought, well, I'm just going to find them something to do. It was actually something that helped him and his guards and all his people, his army out, so they could watch them easier. And it made me think, it's like, it's true that idleness is a breeding ground for temptations. You know what I mean? If they were just sitting there and they could just contemplate and plot what they were going to do and how to escape or something, they're just sitting there all the time. You know, it could be a bad situation. And, but, you know, actually, you know, when we're busy, we create less opportunities for Satan to tempt us. You know, if we stay busy and stay focused on something, have something to motivate us and drive us and give us something to do. And I thought that was pretty interesting there. That's a good point. The way that they put it. So,
yeah, and they were building the walls to keep themselves in.
Basically.
All right, so I'm going to put y'all to work building the walls.
I mean, this is
you from getting out.
This is the first time. This is unprecedented stuff, you know, as far as I think, and I think, you know, some of the first things I ever heard was like how, you know, like in the Revolutionary War, you know, how the Patriots or whatever you want to call us that were here, you know, to fight against the British, but they had all these strategies. We weren't as powerful and as strong as they were, but we had strategies that gave us the upper hand, you know, the hiding in the forest and stuff, waiting for them to come through. And it was sort of like changing up the way traditional war, if you want to call it, was done, where you meet on the battlefield face to face, they fire, you fire, this, that, you know, and all this kind of stuff. And so here we have it shows here that this is something that was also done even more anciently, the strategy type stuff. And it's just really interesting. And, man, some of the things that Moroni does, you think this absolutely probably would work today. I mean, it's like this because this is something where the Lord had his hand in it. The Lord allowed the knowledge and the, you know, the intelligence, war intelligence to happen here, you know, to be able to have a better chance of winning, you know, beating their enemy.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I think one of the here in verses 11 through 19 of chapter 53, one of the great stories of love and compassion for another individual, where the people of Ammon had covenanted not to take up arms. Yeah. But you know, but they're seeing their fellow Nephites start to lose ground and suffer and everything at their defense, and they get to a point, they have so much compassion, they're willing to break that covenant. Yeah. Which is pretty interesting and
pretty intense, really. If you think about it, man. That's that thing that they went through, that was a temple ceremony, so to speak. When they did that covenant, I mean, that was a strong covenant. And so Helaman, he jumps in there and says, "Hey guys, hold up now. You're not going to do that." You know, is that voice of reasoning for them for a second, because they had so much compassion. This also shows that the anti-Nephi Lehi's, or the Ammonites, or whatever you want to call people of Ammon, whatever you want to call them, they were not pacifists at all. It wasn't that they when they made that covenant that they was protesting war or you know, peace, love, harmony, nothing else. If we all die, we all die, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They weren't for that. It was just that they themselves had done so many atrocious things in their lives that they decided to 180 their lives, as I say. You know, they changed their lives completely around. and they decided to go another path and not have that feeling that they did of wanting to, they delighted in murder and blood. These were ferocious Lamanites, as we knew. And so they made that covenant to not do that anymore. And the Lord forgave them for their sins, and they didn't want a chance messing that up. So they made that covenant. And so it wasn't that they ever said, oh, we're, war, you guys, you better stop fighting. This is wrong. And, and of course, nobody wants war. But what I'm getting to is they're not pacifists, I guess is what I should just say.
Right. Yeah.
And I love that, But like I say, Helaman had to step in. He's like, nah, guys, y'all ain't doing that.
Yeah.
It's like not happening.
Yeah, exercising that leadership really to be able to step in and and find another way, another way to handle the situation there.
Said feared lest they doing so they should lose their souls.
Yeah.
So he had his eye on he has priorities straight, I guess.
Absolutely, man.
Well, it's kind of like Marcus, I know you've said a couple times, when you're talking to your kids and you talk about spiritual death and versus physical death, it's really that's what he was looking at. He's like, look, what's the worst thing that can happen is they kill us. That's what's worse is for them to kill us or for us to break a covenant with God and endanger our eternity.
That's a good point, Kenny. That's really what they were doing. They're actually committing spiritual suicide at that point if they were to break that covenant. It sounds a little harsh or a little intense, but it really was an intense thing for them to. A covenant is real, and it's a big deal. When you make that covenant with God, and like I say, I've heard it said that thing that they did when they buried those weapons of war, that was akin to almost pretty much for us to understand the gravity was akin to something similar of a temple ceremony, a temple covenant. So this was like a big deal, So for them to do that, to come back and say, we're gonna break that just so that we can help you. It was for a good cause too. It wasn't like it was, I just want to do it because I miss slinging the old sword.
Right, right.
Yeah, it was. They really were trying to help their brethren, which they did. As we come to find out, they do provide provisions, and then of course their own sons, as we come up to pretty soon here. I wanted to mention one thing in verse 9, and this is not my quote, but I feel like I need to say it because, man, it's pretty profound. In chapter 53, it says, and thus because of iniquity among themselves, yea, because of dissensions and intrigue among themselves, they were placed in the most dangerous circumstances. We've touched on that a little bit, but this was, I love this right here. It says, in regard to the Book of Mormon, scripture, Alma 53:9, one commentator explained how external trials, such as the Nephites endured, can sometimes point to internal needs. It says, so it was a blessing to the Nephites, after all, to have the Lamanites on the doorstep, to stir them up to remembrance. Happy is the man that whom God correcteth. It says, no matter how wicked and ferocious and depraved the Lamanites might be, and they were that, no matter how much they outnumbered the Nephites, darkly closing in on all sides, no matter how insidiously they spied and intrigued and infiltrated and hatched their diabolical plots and breathed their bloody threats and pushed their formidable preparations for all-out war, they were not the Nephite problem. They were merely kept there to remind the Nephites of their real problem, which was to walk uprightly before the Lord. And I thought, whoa, that's pretty profound. Sometimes we look at our trials or the things that happen in our lives or the opposition that we face, and we think that's our problem, that's the thing. And it kind of makes me think of Corey Anton and Alma, when Alma was talking to his son Corey Anton. The problem, of course, he had committed sexual sin, but Alma figured out why it got to that point, as we kind of discussed a little bit in that podcast. It's like there's a root to the problem, you know what I mean? And sometimes our opposition that's out there is to remind us what we really need to be focusing on. And so it wasn't so much that the Lamanites was their problem, the Nephite problem. The Nephites' problem was their own internal selves, right, watching themselves. And the Lamanites were there to keep them reminded of it, And it was like, I thought that was just really interesting. That definitely applies to life today.
Yes, absolutely.
And ultimately, it was spiritual. The problem was spiritual in nature. And that reminds me, too, of what Jackson was saying a minute ago about the dissensions within countries and things like that. Because when you said that, I was thinking about how like in the Book of Mormon, a lot of when this happens, it's not, it's spiritual in nature. Like the kind of the rot that begins, I guess, it's kind of, it happens to be, it's spiritual. These people, they kind of fall away. They forget their covenants they've made with the Lord. Right. They start doing all kinds of things, and they kind of lose their moral compass.
Right.
And gosh, I don't want to misquote it. I'm trying to think of who said the quote, but I think it was Thomas Jefferson. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. It said that talking about our nation, that the Constitution of the United States was designed to govern a moral and God-fearing people, and would be inadequate for anything less.
Right.
And it's kind of like the United States right now there's a lot of internal strife happening and things, and a lot of it, even though it doesn't seem that way to a lot of people, I think is spiritual, because when the founding fathers originally put this whole thing together, when the Constitution was written and everything, that was designed for everybody to kind of be on the same page, is what it's saying. They say, obviously the United States was this big experiment, different people coming from all over the world and kind of coming together, but ultimately they knew that we needed to have some kind of cohesive overarching morality, I guess you could say, the bound us together. And I feel like we're kind of losing that now.
And it makes sense, though.
A little bit.
The whole reason we're here and where we came from, it is spiritual. I mean, we are from a higher power. We are, we are eternal beings, and so it makes sense. That's a good point.
Correct me if I'm wrong, if y'all know, but I think like just overall basic church attendance has steadily declined over the decades.
I've seen a statistic not long ago that said that, and I'm sure our enemies or antis or whatever you want to call them, or they want to run with that and think that, okay, this is a sign, but as we go farther into these latter days, the sifting of the wheat and the tares, all the things that we hear. I mean, it sort of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a large, I don't want to say large, but there will be a significant decline probably before the second coming. But when Christ comes again, I really believe there'll be hundreds of thousands of people that will decide to join the church. Once it comes.
Yeah. And when I refer to churches, I'm actually referring to all denominations.
All denominations.
Yes, religion in general. Yeah. There's an episode of the Maxwell podcast that the author wrote a book about the. I'm trying to think of the title. The nuns, not N-U-N, but nuns, N-O-N-E-S, talking about how religion has shifted in the past few decades. Because it used to be like if you were filling out a form or something, that asked for your religious identification, there was a few boxes, and you would always, you're a Christian, or you're a Muslim, or you're a Buddhist, or you're Jewish, or you're this or that. But it used to be very rare that someone would check none. When if you ask someone about their religious identification.
That's true.
They were active in worship or not. Even if they never went to church or synagogue or anything, most people would say, "Oh, well, yeah, I'm such and such." And in the past few decades, there's just this exponential increase of people who identify as none of the above, nothing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Whether there's debate whether that's good or bad. Some people think it's a good thing, but it's definitely something that's unprecedented in human history, because religion has been such a big part of the human experience forever.
Right. Wow.
So we're kind of just now starting to see how that's going to play out.
That's right. Yep. All right. So we had started talking about Helaman and how he steps in and does not allow the people of Ammon to break their covenant, which was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say who comes up with the idea, but it's a genius idea. Great.
Yeah.
And with Helaman stepping in, I'm going to assume he's the one that had the thought there. He says, hey, y'all have made this covenant. but you've got a lot of sons that have not made that covenant personally. So a little loophole, so to speak, you know, to getting around that.
Yeah,
really. So,
and it's sort of, you know, it's funny you say that, Jackson, is because it's a lot like that whole mercy justice type thing, like with the Savior.
Right.
They couldn't physically do what they wanted to do. They were constrained by the you know, the covenant that they had made, but yet something needed to be done. And here's the sons stepping in to satisfy that. And you know what I'm saying? It's just on a very small, minute, you know, minuscule scale.
Right.
You know, that I thought was pretty interesting.
Absolutely.
But to me, it shows me their commitment to their covenants, though.
Oh man,
it does. Yeah.
Dude, they're sending their sons to war.
They're young sons.
That's huge. Yeah, that's huge, man. I can't imagine. It's almost like it reminds me of Abraham, you know, and Isaac. It's like they're, you know, you don't know, you know, when there's war going on, there's a good chance you're going to die, and there's a good chance you could die a horrible, painful, miserable death, you know, and nobody wants that for their child. And so to me, it's huge that they're so serious about this, that okay, about their covenants. You know, how many of us would break a covenant before we would send our child into something like that? You know, really, I mean, that's a tough call. That's a big deal.
Like I say, this is pretty paramount. This is like a really, sometimes we want to gloss over, and we do see sort of, you know, obviously we know what it is, but man, there's some depth to this. Some heavy decisions were made. As a matter of fact, we find out later there's 60 more that come and join later. And you think, well, why did they wait? Man, as a parent, I would have been like, hold on just a second. Like, let us think about this for just a second. But then maybe that's those 60 sons that came a little later decided that, I do want to do this. Maybe we're getting a letter from home or a letter from my cousin or whoever else is out there. And I don't know, you know, it's very interesting, but this was a big deal. This was not something glossed over. This was huge. And the average age of these young men that we come to find out is anywhere between 12 to 20 years old.
Yeah. And
so the average age is 15, 16 years old, man. I mean, this is young. That's what stripling is. It means young. It's, you know.
And this leads us right into our special guest that we're going to have on here in just a couple seconds, couple minutes. But for the sons to be willing to do this and to go to battle for their parents and basically, you know, they don't know if they're going to die or not. Like
absolutely,
and stuff. So it says a lot to the teachings of the parents and as we find out, especially the mothers. And so with that, we're going to introduce Kenny's wife and Kenny's stepson, who recently received his mission call, as you heard in the last couple episodes.
Germany.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, we got Megan.
He's going to fight spiritual warfare in Germany.
That's
right. That's right. Exactly.
In a way, Kenny, you're sending your son out into the into the world to battle,
while I get to sit at home and.
Exactly.
That's right. Well, here
we
are.
Jacob, what's
Megan
up?
and Jacob.
Good morning.
Yep, we got.
Good morning.
We appreciate y'all joining us here today.
Thanks for having us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we were just talking about the Stripling Warriors and how much of an impact they had on their parents' lives, and we talked about a little bit how their faith and their teachings and everything came from their parents, and then in particular, as the scriptures talk about, their mothers. Mm-hmm. And so with Jacob recently receiving a call to serve a mission in Germany, Berlin, Germany. Congratulations, Jacob.
Congratulations.
And stuff. So we're pretty sure that your lovely mother sitting next to you there, you know, had some good influence on you there and making that decision to serve. So.
It's so interesting. I just wanted to mention it's so interesting too that this past week on Facebook, I don't know, I think Megan had shared some pictures, some older pictures from the ancient 90s. But it was you know, I seen some of where she's holding Jacob and he was small and all this, and it's so and we had already discussed that this would happen, and I thought, wow, how fitting to see these pictures and to know that this is kind of what we're sort of talking about. You know, I mean, obviously it's how parents, and particularly mothers in this case, because of the scripture that we read, how they bring up their sons and what kind of impact that has on them. So, interesting.
I know for me, serving a mission, and really getting into this story, the Stripling Warriors. I mean, out there serving, you feel like you're one of the Stripling Warriors.
Yeah.
You're out there, you're on the front line, you're teaching the Word of God, you're bringing people to Christ, and you fully realize, how much of impact your mom has there and everything. So,
yeah.
So we just wanted to get your thoughts, your insights. So anything you want to say or bring up, and how all this applies to you and Jacob. So.
All right. Well, Thank you. So as I was reading, the story again about the Stripling Warriors, and of course that's something that I have been taught my whole life. And going into being a mother, I kind of had that in my head that that's a lot of pressure of what I need to do. But like Marcus said, I did. I went back through every picture that I had put on Facebook since I think, Facebook started in 2007, looking for those pictures that had something to do with church, anything to do with church, even if it wasn't at church, activities that we went to. Like, what were those steps that brought Jacob to this point that he's at now, where he is preparing to go into that, that battle of his mission. And so I did put together a little slideshow, if it's okay if I share that right now, while
Absolutely.
I share some of my thoughts about our lives that we've had together.
Okay.
Right.
We'll all cross our fingers that it works.
Yeah.
All right. So for those of y'all who are listening, you'll have to watch the video to see the slides.
Give me just a second. Let me not play the music. Sorry. All right. Is everybody able to see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
Awesome. All right. So Jacob was born on a Thursday, and we came home from the hospital on that Sunday. And the following Sunday, we were at church. So from then on, for almost all of his 18 years of life, church has been central to our lives, both on Sunday and throughout the week. His father and I were divorced when Jacob was still a baby. So for about 10 years until I got married again to Kenny, it was up to me to make sure that his life in the gospel was solid. So for many of those years, we did live close to my parents, so that helped a lot. I think back to times when, as you can imagine, I think your wives have all served in this way. When I was primary president, he was just a normal little typical boy, and sometimes he would be rambunctious and kind of make it difficult for me to teach. So there in Jessup, there's a little door outside, right outside the building.
Yeah.
And I would sometimes go put him in the corner outside of the church and say, "You're going to just stay there
Not
until I tell you to
Jacob.
come back inside." And I would go back in and teach the rest of the children. But anytime we traveled, I made a point to, if we were going anywhere near a temple, then we went to that temple. And that was one thing, looking back at pictures. I knew there was a road trip we had taken where we had visited a lot of temples, but I noticed there were other times that we just happened to be in a place that had a temple, and we would go by and look at the temple and take pictures and just enjoy the beautiful grounds of the temple. Jacob was baptized on his 8th birthday by my father. Now, when Jacob was 9 years old, we moved to Tampa, and that was the only time in my life that I kind of decided to take a break from church. And so because it was just me and Jacob, that meant he took a break as well. And it only really lasted about 4 months that we didn't go to church, but that decision did seem to affect Jacob for quite a while, as I did transition us back into full activity. We took things slowly at first, but over the course of the next year, we were back to full activity and participation in our ward. During Jacob's life, there have been times of consistent family scripture study and periods of time where that wasn't happening. There have been times where we did have family evening and times that we didn't. Now, even though Jacob's dad hasn't been active in the church since he was a baby, he has always been supportive of Jacob's progress in the church. And he's always given permission when permission was needed, such as Jacob's baptism, priesthood ordinations, and even Jacob being sealed to Kenny and I a few months after we were sealed in 2014. So as Jacob was getting old enough to attend seminary, he told me he didn't really feel like doing that. And I let him know that he would be going. He was a bit perplexed. And I said, "It's what we do. We go to seminary." I was like, I went to seminary. My brothers went to seminary. My sister went to seminary. Even Kenny went to seminary. And he was like, that doesn't really make any sense. He's like, I mean, if you all were murderers, would you want me to be a murderer? And I was like, probably. Like if that's what we did. Spoiler alert.
Family business. I mean,
yeah. Jacob recently graduated from seminary, so we can see how that ended. But I feel like it was that balance that contributed to him ultimately gaining a testimony and choosing to go forth and serve a mission. He was never forced to do anything related to church, but he also wasn't given an alternate option. But he did choose to follow the expectations that I gave him, which in turn allowed me to not ever get to the point where I did feel like I had to force him. I was also always honest with Jacob about things in the world while also making sure he knew the standards, what the standards of the church were. So rather than keep him from interacting with people that were maybe not keeping those standards, I just taught him to be kind and respectful to everyone while privately explaining to him why the decisions they were making may not line up with the commandments. He always understood that I would love for him to serve a mission, but I never told him that he had to. Mm-hmm. I never told him that I would be sad or disappointed in him if he didn't choose to go. I did, however, tell him how excited I would be if he did go. And I did brainstorm about the experiences he might get to have if he served a mission. So I'm grateful that even though he and I haven't had the doubtless lives that the Stripling Warriors and their mothers had as recorded in Alma, but I'm grateful that Heavenly Father has still provided and provided us a way that we can still receive the blessings that we have today and to make it to this point where Jacob has decided to serve a mission. So as I thought about this Army's mothers and myself, I thought about the growth that we as mothers experience as we teach our children and make every effort to lead them in the right direction. I know that my testimony has been strengthened through helping to strengthen Jacob, to prepare him to go out into the world. And I'm so proud of the decisions that he's making. So,
awesome. Very good.
That is awesome. That's really good.
Cool beans.
Yeah, on that sort of idea of the expectations that have just sort of been set before me and understood, there are many places in which that appears, and whether it be especially in school along with church attendance, it's always been something that like we didn't really have to fight about necessarily, but it was just an understood thing that like within school I should be doing as best as I can. And sort of when I got into the Aaronic priesthood and when I, especially when I began to be able to bless as a priest, bless the sacrament, it was just sort of understood that, as part of my calling, when the bishop would ask me or ask the priest to be there early to prepare and bless the sacrament and stuff like that, that I was there. And I would be there for the years before all that happened. I was there usually about like 30 minutes beforehand, I think, just to make sure that the sacrament was prepared properly and to make sure that I was ready and I was prepared for it.
And that was something that was kind of him bringing that up. That was kind of crazy when I think all of us that were in the ward kind of noticed that change in Jacob, because at that time when he became a priest, me and Kenny were both in leadership positions. So many Sundays we were in ward council. And of course, I would always intend to text Jacob in the middle and say, are you awake? Like, are you up? Are you ready? And so sometimes I would forget and I would get done. And I'm like, oh, I need to call Jacob. And I would call him. He wouldn't answer. And I would text him. And then I'd walk in the chapel.
He's still asleep.
I would walk in the chapel and he was already in there preparing the sacrament. And that happened numerous times. And same with, deciding once he committed to seminary, once he could drive, Kenny and I were not awake when he left for seminary. I would just get up and I would go walk by his room. I got, he's gone. Awesome. He went.
Yeah. I mean, that's that feeling. That's just an awesome feeling when that kind of thing happens, with your children. I mean, those are the moments where you start to think, well, maybe I did okay as a parent. You know what I mean? Those are moments, it's like, maybe I did something. And to
be honest, when he started that transition, I didn't want to say that I was like not really believing it, but I remember there was one time I was talking to Bishop Mathis and I said something like, I mean, he's saying this, he's doing this. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. And he's like, no,
that sounds very
got
familiar,
it.
yes.
He's got it. He's doing it. He does. He's doing it for real. Like he's not just saying it. Cause I was like, I mean, right now I'm fine if he's just saying it. Like,
right. Yeah. I mean, that's a win, that's a win there, but if he's actually doing it, that's
as long as he's not
awesome.
fighting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Man, there's so many things that you said as y'all were both discussing some things there. As Megan was talking about, basically raising Jacob here, and the factors that came into her life and the things that made Jacob who he is, and Megan, even you who you are as a mother. But some of the things you talked about, when you talked about the there's loving discipline, there's the thing, like you said, there's the door, you put him out there, but loving discipline, surrounded by support. You talked about support. I mean, I see the pictures, I see the grandparents, I see, the friends, just everybody that's around. And even though, like you said, you'd been divorced or whatever, but at least, his father is still supportive, and things like that. Communication. I think that was one thing you brought up, being honest, like just being like, this is how it is. This is the way it is, and laying it out before him. But the thing that's so great about that is that allows him to make the choice. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think as parents, that's the hardest. That's got to be, if somebody asks me, what's the hardest thing about being a parent? I think it's allowing our children to use their agency. It's Definitely. Absolutely hard. And what I'm getting to, obviously when they're super young, that's a different story. When they get to this teen years and things and start moving up, you start to allow them to make those choices. And then you're just stand back and you're like, please do the right thing. And then, like you say, Megan, when you catch them doing the right thing, it's like, whew, that's good. That's good. Yeah. We did good.
Yeah. Who was it that gave the talk? Was it Jeffrey R. Holland that compared it to an arrow? Like raising children, like is aiming. You pull the arrow back and you can aim, but once you let go of it, it's
the
you
arrow's
can't
on
control it. It's you can just hope that it hits its target.
Get them in the right direction, and you hope they hit the right
direction. And once they go, it's their choice, and you got to just hope that they go in the right direction. Yeah.
Well, speaking of send them in the right direction, I love the fact that Megan would take every opportunity, anytime they were near a temple, take him to the temple, see the temple. Even if Jacob may have been too young to go in, take him to the temple, see it, be familiar with it. Those are great opportunities. There.
That's the key. That's the key to this thing, man, is that, and when you hear when they say in obviously the famous verses in 56, 47, 48, when they say, and they rehearsed them to be saying the words of their mothers saying, we do not doubt our mothers knew it. The reason they say that is because they saw what their mothers did. And it wasn't just a tell me what's right and then never see it happen. It wasn't that type of thing, man. They observed their mothers and they saw what was happening. And so that's the thing. I think of Joseph Smith. I'd seen a vision. What does he say? He says, for I'd seen a vision, I knew it. I knew that God knew it, and I could not deny it. So these young men are the same way. We've seen our mothers. We've seen how they raised us. We've seen how they've taught us and what they believe, and they believe it, and they walk it. I can't deny that. We can't deny. We do not doubt that our mothers knew it. That's what they're saying.
Right.
It's pretty interesting.
And
that's right. And those if anybody's listening, not of our faith, it's a lot of people may not understand that the temples are very, very symbolic, but it's for Latter-day Saints, it's symbolic of our relationship with Jesus Christ. And so anytime we're even near the temple, whether we're actually going into a temple to worship or to do things, or whether we're just on the grounds, it always comes back to that. It's like it's physical, tangible reminders of our Savior Jesus Christ and what He's done for us, and our relationship with Him. So that's those things that Megan did. We're kind of planting those seeds of constant little reminders of this is what's important. This is what's most important to us, and this is and obviously she's
Yeah.
raised up a stripling warrior who's ready to go to battle.
That's right.
That's right. That's right.
And a lot of times, or sometimes, it's kind of hindsight. You don't as a child, and I'm going to get Jacob's thoughts and perspective on this. But a lot of times when as you're bringing up, and we can all think back to being raised by our parents and everything, and them trying to teach us things, and a lot of times we're like, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about, you don't understand me, this and that. And so a lot of times it's hindsight. You have to go through the experience, and then you look back like, man, she was really guiding me, or she was doing the right thing, or putting me in the right situations. Jacob, I don't know if if you have any thoughts like that.
Oh yeah, and I was thinking too, sort of the not doubting that my mother knew it and this sort of thing. I think one thing that led me through the hardest times was knowing that this is at least what I was supposed to do, right? Yeah. Like, even if I didn't have the strongest testimony, even if I didn't have the strongest beliefs about certain things, even if I didn't really know that it was like the best way to be, even that it was a necessary way to live my life, I knew it was the way that we lived our lives, and I knew it was the way that I was supposed to live my life. I knew it was what was expected of me and stuff like that. And I think back even to the various kinds of expectations that have been set in the sort of experiences and the sort of things that I've heard throughout my life and things that I've been taught. And I'm reminded of, I think in Alma 56, earlier on, more about the liberty of their fathers than their own lives. And it sort of reminded me, like when we'd have firesides and stuff like that, where people were talking about, the various men in the war talking about their missions and when they had served and the trials that they went through and things like that. They would sort of share these moments that were sort of, playfully supposed to be, okay, these are the bad parts. These are the parts where, whether Hester got like sick you couldn't like get clean water wherever you were sent and stuff like that. It's been interesting because going into that and knowing that's a part of it, it's almost part of the savor. Part of the savor of that salt is like the grit, is the feeling that this is going to be a hard thing, and I'm really excited to engage in something that's going to be difficult and engage in something that I know is going to be really challenging and really like maybe a little harrowing even, hopefully.
Right. Yeah. That's a great, that's a great outlook, really, to be able to want. I mean, it really is to be able to want to go and do your part. And what I'm talking about is we know the Savior, and when you really think about it, we can't comprehend the atonement and the amount of pain and affliction and everything that he went through, and just the great agony that he experienced. But what Jacob is alluding to, you want to be able to give a part of yourself, in that way. You want to suffer a little bit, in whatever way it is to feel like you've done your part, so to speak. And again, we've talked about, Christ takes care of all of it, but you still, as a mortal individual, you want to give as much as you can when you truly love the Savior. Yeah,
definitely. And it's made parts of my life that I think for some people are complicated. We talk about in church, I know, especially in recent years, this idea of making the decision the one time that you will not engage in something. And so it's really been easy going through high school. And of course, we don't have a lot of church members in our high school. I mean, we have more than some, but it's not like my entire friend group can be comprised of fellow members of the church and my peers in seminary and stuff like that. And so then having friends who weren't parts of that, and sort of knowing that within myself, I'm resolute, and I can engage and I can have friends, but also not be part of the world, I think, or I think it was to engage with the world, but not be of the world. And sort of things like that. And, having good friendships and having solid relationships with people outside of the family and outside of the church, but still standing strong and choosing the right, and knowing that I'm gonna not plan to hang out with friends on Sunday because on Sunday I have church, or even like I've invited some friends to Wednesday night activities back when those were happening more often. And
for the COVID times.
Yeah.
That's right.
And like, I don't know, it's always just been a nice thing. And even now, talking to my friends and telling my friends about serving a mission, they've sort of balked at that because, and to be completely honest, like I'm not the most proselytizing person in my life. You know, I'm not always trying to get people to come to the church. I'm probably not the best missionary in my day-to-day life. So then it's sort of funny seeing their reactions and stuff like that. And even telling my bosses, I have this one manager that I told about the fact that I was going on a mission. You know, like, yeah, it's supposed to be 2 years in a different country, and like she was so
Flabbergasted.
appalled at it.
Appalled?
She was like, wait, like you're not gonna miss your mom? You're gonna miss her cooking, you know, and stuff like that. And like,
Exactly.
wait, you don't even come back for Christmas? Like you're gonna be there for 2 years straight? Like, how's that happening? You know, and this sort of thing. But honestly, I think it's you know, I'd much rather in sort of during these difficult times there is a question of whether I should go to college before going on a mission. You know, like that used to be the standard. So of course it's not a bad thing to do. But I think it was clear to me that it was a better decision to go ahead and do a mission before college, because I think all of my life after the mission will be made better and made more useful.
You're laying a solid foundation.
That's right.
Exactly. And sort of like the mission will multiply all of my efforts to
Absolutely.
come. And so then to spend a year in college even without that, you know, it kind of in its own way be a waste.
Yeah.
In its own way, it wouldn't be as useful and as restorative an experience or as building up of an experience as it could be.
See, that's one of those decisions that you've made on your own. You know, it's that's what I'm talking about. This is you using your agency to make correct decisions in your life. You know, and things that and you have it's like you have a good outlook when it comes to that. I love there's a verse 11. I love at the end it says and they are happy. You know, that's talking about the Stripling Warriors. They're happy, and it's like, how can you be happy? You've never fought before. You're a novice at best at knowing how to even wield a sword or anything. And here you are, but you're happy. And why are they happy? And you know, how can we be happy is because we have that solid foundation that we're working on. We know the bigger picture. You know, we know the grand scheme of things and how things will play out pretty much with the plan of salvation. So we can be happy and keep moving forward. And you know,
I think they're going into battle too. They're talking about being happy. They're literally going to they could be going to their deaths as far as they really. You know, but I know that's such a big thing, but it's just like, how can we be happy in the midst of trials when we're facing
absolutely
horrible, awful things? That's like they were literally going into battle. They were basically children going into battle.
They're happy.
They're like,
they have that.
This.
Yeah, they have that solid foundation, man. They got that. They know the bigger picture, you know. As a matter of fact, they've seen probably a lot of death, or at least been around a lot. How many funerals have they seen probably in their lives? You know what I mean? So they know of physical death, but yet because of their mothers, because of their parents or whoever, the people that were around them, they know that is the lesser death. You know, spiritual death is what matters.
And I did think about that some about their mothers too, about them sending them away. And I know there's every mother has a different personality, but my personality works well to embrace what I feel like is the goal in psychology and in the church, that you raise them so that they leave. They're supposed to go. And so same like how he said how his boss was like, how can you imagine leaving for 2 years? And people ask me that, like, you're sending him away. I'm like, no, that's
that's right.
He's supposed to leave.
No,
that is what's supposed to happen, and he's ready, and and people be like, well, what if he was going tomorrow? Well, then bye, like, have a great time.
I know
you are going to do amazing. And just like they were, they didn't doubt. But their moms, even though they didn't doubt, they knew that there was a possibility sending them away, they would die. And me and Jacob talked about that last night. Now I have faith that he's going to be protected on his mission. However, I know that anything can happen while he's on his mission. And I have faith that even if something does happen, it's okay. He's
Yeah.
still saved. If he dies, heaven forbid, on his mission,
Right. Yeah.
that is okay, because that he would be doing that in the Lord's name, and will deal, like, you know what I mean? It's that's his life.
Be a better way to die than like driving to work at public.
Yeah.
Hey, that's
If there's gonna be a place to die, it's cooler to die outside of the country.
and
Unlike-
yeah, and
If you're gonna have to die young, die in the
we could do a
Lord's
top
service.
we could do a
of the
top
Lord,
10
man.
of top 10
Top
of
10
best
ways to die.
ways to die. Best ways to die. Here it is.
Listen, that is a profound and strong statement, Megan, and a great example of faith and realizing, because unfortunately there are plenty of mothers out there who don't want to see their sons go. Even though, like you said, that's why you're raising them. You want them; they're going to be on their own eventually. You want your kids to be on their own and not dependent on you. So if you've raised your children to be self-sufficient, self-sustaining, whether it's temporally, spiritually, you've done your job.
Yeah.
You've done your job, and what a great example of faith and example that is. So,
thank you.
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome. I mean, I think of Timothy Fussell, his dad and his mom. He told the story one time, I think when they were young. For those that don't know Timothy Fussell, he was a stake president, a leader in our church back when we were in the Douglas area. But anyway, so he told the story of his mom. I think him and one of his brothers or something was telling his mom, like, we never see daddy. Daddy's, because his dad served in the church and he was always gone. Meetings, he would work all day. He'd come in, get dressed, go to church, be at meetings all night. Hardly ever you see their sons too much. I mean, obviously he was there with them and stuff, but they just had that concern, I guess, when they were younger. Like, we never see him much. Why has he always got to be away? But the mom explained to him, like, what a blessing it is that your dad is serving the Lord. He is away. We don't see him much, but it's, he's doing the right thing. He's doing things that are important. And it's just that whole thing, like Megan saying these things. I'm sure there's moms or parents out there that might hear this and go, wow, she's pretty cold hearted, but it's not, but it's not, it's absolutely the opposite. It's so much the opposite. Because you have the greater perspective and you understand more. This is not the end all be all of life right here. This is not the end. I mean, we're going for eternity. So the more great things that he can do and experience and grow and learn, that we're all here to do that. We're all here to grow, learn, experience, see what we can do to better ourselves. And so that's the proper attitude, in my opinion. I mean, I don't want to, but that's the way we feel with Gavin, also with his calling, and he's doing the MTC and stuff. And matter of fact, this very morning at about 4, which is why I was a little late getting onto the podcast earlier, but we got a email from President Licalzi about 4 this morning, and it's saying that they've changed his date again, which they've pushed it farther out. And so he's going to be home about a month after his MTC is over. And so we've got to figure out a schedule. Yeah. And so, and so I find myself telling, my wife, and I'm like, I'm ready for him to go. Right. It's like he needs to be gone. But to somebody else, they might think, really? You want? But it's like, for me, it's like for his sake too. I want him out. I want him in the field. I want him experiencing and going. Let's get it going. And so it's not a cold-hearted thing. It's absolutely the opposite of that.
It reminds me of those who've seen the movie The Other Side of Heaven. There's a part there that's a great movie. That I know people that aren't familiar with the culture of the church.
Yes, right.
Latter-day Saints. When he's leaving, when he's getting ready to get on that train, and his mom looks at him and says, "Don't come home." Yeah, and it's like people would that sounds cold. Like, what are you talking about? Don't what? Yeah, but they don't understand. Like, she's saying, like, don't back out of this thing you're doing. Right. Don't give up. This is you're doing a good thing, a righteous thing, an awesome thing. She's like, don't give up. She was It's funny because even the first time I saw it, she just says, "Don't come home." Like, what are you talking about? And then when you think about it, like, it's actually that's the most loving thing she could have said, because she was saying, you can do this. You're taking on a hard thing right now, but you've got it.
Mm-hmm. I think when Jacob was probably when he was 14 or 15, when he was kind of in the height of his
Mini
how shall I
rebellion.
say? Yeah, he was a little mini rebellion.
Mini rebellion.
My understanding, he didn't actually ever do anything
Right. That's
wrong,
why it's mini.
but he definitely was pushing against. He was pushing against expectations and saying things that were alarming.
Yeah.
But during that time, I remember we did have a conversation where, and I don't even know if he remembers this. I think it really happened. He can tell me if it happened or not. But where I said, look, when you're 18, you really you'll leave. Like you're going to go to college. You're going to be done. You'll be done with high school. You'll leave. Give me the next 2 years. That's all I'm asking you to do. Give me the next 2 years. Just go along if you have to, what I'm telling you for the next 2 years. And it was during that period that, like I said, and because we had that conversation when it first started, that I was like, I don't know if he's just doing it because I told him to, but it did change during that time. So did that happen?
I don't believe
I think it did. I think
that happened.
He does it.
It's really hard. It's hard to see things when you're in the moment, but from looking outside in, from what I'm seeing now, I think it did happen.
Yeah.
I really do.
Well, and really what he's saying about not remembering, and even you guys saying, in hindsight, like that to me is a big part of it, of having things be so pervasive and so normal and so everyday that you don't even know, you don't even remember, like going to the temple. Like, I don't think he necessarily remembers going as a kid, but it was so normal that once he was 12, it was like, hey, we've been coming here your whole life. And now you get to go inside. And then same thing, even he'd already been doing baptisms when then he got sealed to us. So here's the next step. And, once the church came out and said, hey, we've always said, don't really talk about this. You should talk to your children about this. So once they said that, it was like, we sat down. I was like, let me go through, what to expect when you go to the temple. And of course, the sacred parts of it, we didn't talk about, but everything else, the logistics of the, everything else about his temple experience. I mean, and so now I know that when he gets his temple recommend and the temple opens up where he can go, due to COVID, it's not going to be this scary, this thing to be anxious about or nervous about, because it's already been talked about and expected for his whole life that this is the next step.
Yeah, he's absolutely. You've done everything to prepare him, and being open and honest, I think, is so important. Communication is key. I mean, with the last chapters of this whole thing is about Pahoran and Captain Moroni. Captain Moroni thinking that Pahoran has basically is a turncoat now, and he's not supporting him, and et cetera. But those are the last couple of chapters here. But the whole thing there was communication. Thank goodness Captain Moroni didn't just assume that Pahoran had turned his back on him and went in and just took him out. He actually talked with him and discussed. And I think communication is key to so many things. Speaking truthfully and speaking openly and allowing questions. Allowing all these things. I think it's so huge with raising our children. Never, ever, ever assume that our children know that we have a testimony of the gospel. Never assume that. Share it with them. Talk to them about it. Show them the temple. Tell them how much the temple means, et cetera, et cetera.
That's right.
I think that's what I've seen here. I'm very impressed. So.
Yeah, well, Megan and Jacob,
Awesome.
we appreciate y'all coming on, and we appreciate you giving you insights and everything. It's been great talking with you, and I'm sure everybody out there is going to enjoy listening to what you had to say. So
absolutely, we appreciate y'all doing it.
And I just want to say, like, on that feeling cold or whatever, and talking about whether or not I'll die. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're like they're trying to escape the Lamanites, right? And either way, they're running out of time. Either way, there's going to be a battle. So then, really, what it is to turn around and to face it head on.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Very good, absolutely.
Goodbye.
Bye.
That went amazing. I think
they did great, man. The main thing here in 56, one thing that I love, a lot of people, we talk about, and we've had Megan and Jacob on, and we talked about a lot of things, and I don't want to put out the false narrative that everybody's going to have that same experience, because it seems pretty perfect. I mean, and I know it's not, but it seems really good. But I wanted to just put up some hope here for those that may not feel that way. But here's one thing here. I love this in 56:10. it says, "And I did join my 2,000 sons, for they were worthy to be called sons, to the army of Antipas." So Antipas is out there. He's got his army. He's fighting for the Nephites. They're struggling. They're having a time. There's a lot of death. A lot of people have died. The Lamanites have come upon them pretty heavily, and they need some help. Well, here comes Helaman with his brand new 2,000 Stripling Warriors, never fought before. And this was their first march into battle, basically. This would be their first time. He says they did march to he did join to the army of Antipas, in which strength Antipas did rejoice exceedingly. So when Antipas sees these guys coming up, he's like, okay, now here comes some help, man. This is helping. And he's happy. He says, "For behold, his army had been reduced by the Lamanite forces." I love the fact that in this verse, just the mere fact that the Stripling Warriors have not, as I said before, slung a sword yet. They haven't drawn a sword, but here they are marching to the aid of Antipas, and it gives so much boost to the morale of his army that they actually become excited and happy. And and then also in 56:18, just to add to it, it goes with it. And now it came to pass that when the Lamanites saw Antipas had received a greater strength in the army, they were compelled by the orders of Ammoron, who was their captain, to not come against the city of Judea or against us to battle. So here's the Lamanites also. So you have the army of Antipas that sees the 2,000 Stripling Warriors heading their way, and they're excited. They got help. But you also see the armies of the Lamanites with Ammoron, and they see them coming, and they go, "Oh, shoot. We're going to back down. We're not going to fight anymore. We're leaving. We're hightailing because we don't want to get into this. It's too much coming our way." So here's the thing. Those verses to me, 10 and 18 in chapter 56, are for those that feel inadequate. Those are for those people that maybe they don't have an official calling, they don't have a dominant personality, they don't feel up to par to those around us. How we compare ourselves to others, we always feel inadequate. It says, "I imagine these novice, young, inexperienced Stripling Warriors felt very similar." They felt that very same thing. They were inadequate. We don't know what we're doing. This is our first battle. Were they scared? I guarantee you they were scared.
Oh yeah.
So we see the pictures of them marching in, and they're all buff and just ripped, and I'm sure they were in better shape than I was, but these were young
12
guys.
years old.
Yeah, 12 years old. But these were young guys, and they didn't know. But the thing is, these verses to me show us that just showing up for a battle is a huge accomplishment. If we just show up. There's so many things that we could have done better. You can always say it. I can say it so many times. I wish I'd done this better. I wish I'd done that. But we're trying. We show up. We don't know how much good comes from just showing up for our meetings or activities. We don't know how much good that is. Some people, I've heard it so many times. Well, I don't know why I come because I ain't much I can do here. You hear people say that about how they're not doing much. And I've always told them, I said, just you being here, me seeing you here is such a big boost to me. It helps me, it strengthens me to see you, that you have enough testimony to come through the door, as we say, darken the doorway on Sunday, to come in. And it's a great source and sign of strength to everyone around us. And it says, just being where you're supposed to be is paramount to the kingdom of God. On the other hand, on the other side of the coin, if we could only see the amount of bravery it takes for someone to simply show up, I'm sure we would embrace everyone that walked through the church doors. If we could just, it's a struggle. It's a battle for them just to show up. And they're absolutely scared. They're intimidated. They're frightened, just like these Stripling Warriors, but they're there. And if we could just take that into perspective for some of these people, we know who they are. We know some of those people who they are. I was going to say put your arms around them, but you can't today. But you know what I'm saying? Encourage them and let them know how much they mean to us, to see these people. Just show up. So when you feel inadequate, you're doing more good than you think you are. I can promise you that. If you're trying your best, you're doing far more good. And if people can't see that, then those people need to get a better perspective on things. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
Absolutely. That's really good too. And yeah, also, Marcus has, a son who's in the same situation. And unfortunately they couldn't be with us this morning, but
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just the willingness to go and do that is like you said, Marcus, I feel like a lot of times I kind of have to remind myself of that sometimes too, because it does, it's easy to feel inadequate or feel like what you're doing just isn't enough. And but sometimes you have to remind yourself, look, as long as I'm trying, if I'm going and doing and I'm showing up, as you said, that's huge. It's huge. That's 90% of the battle right there. As
Absolutely.
long as you can put in the effort to be where
their first battle, they made the Lamanites hightail and run, and they didn't do anything, and but it was huge, and it was a great support to Antipas, and he felt that support, so it's very, very good things there to learn.
The last couple of verses that I wanted to point out comes in chapter 58. Verses 10 and 11, but thinking about, it mentioned several times where the Lamanites greatly outnumber the Nephites.
Yeah.
And there was, and as you see in these chapters, there was a lot of preparation, a lot of strategy involved in defeating the Lamanites. But one thing that the Nephites did not ever forget is that their strength and their reliance upon the Lord. In verses 10 and 11, it says, "Therefore we did pour out our souls in prayer to God, that he would strengthen us and deliver us out of the hands of our enemies, yea, and also give us strength that we might retain our cities and our lands and our possessions for the support of our people. And it came to pass that the Lord our God did visit us with assurances that he would deliver us, yea, insomuch that he did speak peace to our souls and did grant unto us great faith, and to cause that we should hope for our deliverance in him." And you think these chapters, again, one of the reasons I love these chapters is because we can apply them to our spiritual battles here in this life. And it ultimately comes down to our reliance upon the Lord. And although things may not always work out the way we want them to work out, this in verse 11 where it talks about, he says he did speak peace to our souls. They didn't know the outcome, what the outcome was going to be of these battles. But in them, they felt peace and they felt comfort that they would be delivered in him. So again, going back to Marcus's frequent statement of they knew that spiritually they would survive.
Yeah.
Physically, they didn't know, but spiritually, it was all going to be okay.
Yeah. They'd be preserved by his marvelous power.
That's right. There you go.
We've talked about that so many times, and it just, you, as you said it again, it made me think how much hope and courage does that give somebody? How much less it's like there's so much less worriment. You know what I mean? There's so much less trifling with things. When you know that I'm good spiritually, I don't have to worry about the physical. I'm going to do all I can to protect myself and things. I'm going to push as hard as I can, but in the end, it's going to be all right. If I go down, it's just what it is. I'm
gonna go down swinging.
I'm gonna go down swinging. But if I go down, I'm gonna rise above.
That's right. That's right. Well, very good. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, man. I'm impressed with Jacob. I'm impressed with Megan. Kenny, you did good.
Yep. That's right.
you got
I didn't do anything but show up.
Yeah,
I just showed up. That's all I've done.
And what a great strength you've been to them. I mean,
that's all her. That's all her. And
man, I'm telling you, man, that's just awesome.
And obviously, this whole lesson reminds me of I couldn't remember the verse, but it's Proverbs 22:6. Obviously, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
Yep.
Which is in the book of Proverbs, meaning it's not necessarily it's just kind of a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
That might not always work out that way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be difficult when we do all the right things sometimes. And in Megan's situation, she did all the right things, and luckily it worked out good. And,
absolutely, because
Jacob has accepted his responsibility, but sometimes our children don't. And
absolutely,
that can be difficult.
You teach correct principles. You do the best you can. You let them govern themselves.
Yeah.
That's
what Joseph Smith said. Yep.
Yep. And that's what happened. You got to allow them to choose. I mean, that's what this life is all about. We choose, we make choices, and we suffer consequences, and those things help us learn. And hopefully it wakes us up and we turn around the way we should go. But
there was a great article this week in Church News about teaching principles over rules. I don't know if y'all had a chance to read that article, but it's really,
I have
really
not.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Teach.
So, well, all right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And until next time, y'all keep on striving.